I'm going to take you through the journey of what sustainable HRM is about in the last, 17, 18 years. Now, I know that I've heard and I've seen a lot of people being very aspirational in writing papers and talking about sustainable HR. But it is very important for us to understand sustainable HRM has evolved. So, for example, if you are not going to be current in what is happening now, it will be a myth if you are trying to use what happened and what was talked about as sustainable HRM in 2003 when was the first article on sustainable HRM was written. So what I'm trying to do now is I thought that it will be useful for me to start with what is a myth in sustainable HRM so that you know when you're doing research or you're planning to teach what is sustainable HRM and what is not sustainable HRM and what is the reality of it. So the first thing what I want to show you is the myth and the reality of it. So people tend to think it is quite common. People think sustainable HRM is a variable, which means that you can measure it. Yes, it was true in 2003 till 2009. It was true because that's how it happened. But today, is it still a variable? No, it's not a variable because it has become a field. It has become a theoretical domain. So you cannot measure a field as a variable or as a construct. So that's the key. The first thing is we need to understand we have moved a long way from what we started in 2003, and now it has become a field by itself. Because it has become a field, it is important for us now to use it to shape the future generation of our world, where people can use that in the organization when they go and join. Now, I'll give you an example. When I spoke to a couple of CEOs, in Australia, what they told me was that I was telling them how they are talking about corporate social responsibility, but it is all about philanthropy rather than actually doing it in changing sustainability goals or achieving it. They told me, Sumar, it's nice for you to blame on us, pointing a finger and telling us, oh, we are not doing the right thing. And he asked me, tell me, what are the tools I can use? And I was stumped. I didn't have one to say what we can. And that's where we started in this journey of building, making sustainable HRM as a field now. We have made it as a field because the business wanted it. We cannot point a finger at them and we don't take any responsibility how we conduct research to help business. So that's the purpose why we wanted to have this webinar and reach out to people directly. So the second myth is people, there's more people interested in green HRM because environment is important. I'm not denying that. But that doesn't mean that green HRM and sustainable HRM are synonymous. They are not. What it is, if you look at it, it is part of sustainable HRM. I know whoever is interested in strategic HRM and green HRM will know about Susan Jackson. Now, Susan Jackson has written about green HRM, and now she teaches in the US green HRM as part of sustainable HRM. So the key is, yes, green HRM can be a construct by itself, but it is part of sustainable HRM. You would see why. We will talk about it in the next slide, why it has become part of it. So people who are pioneers in green HRM have started accepting that it is under the broader umbrella of sustainable human resource management. Now, people tend to believe that sustainable HRM is on individual engagement. I get a lot of requests, people saying, oh, Sugama, can we use sustainable HRM to understand employee engagement? Now, the most important thing, how the field has developed as of now, it's an institutional theory. So we are talking about, you need to understand the organization is the one which has to achieve sustainability performance. So we need to know from the institutional level. Me being an organizational psychologist, we've been trained as that individuals can make all the difference. If you're resilient, you can cope with everything. Yes, you can. And that's the advantage strategic HRM took on us. And, it has pushed individuals to the edge. Today, we are in a position that sustainability is important because strategic HRM has pushed boundaries for profit. So institutional level changes has to happen. And sustainable HRM is more about institutional rather than individual focused. Yes, there are researchers who have talked about green HRM from an individual level, but most of it's on the institutional level what we are talking about. So if you look in terms of sustainability performance, this is what happened at the early stage of sustainable HRM. We wanted to tweak strategic HR practices to achieve sustainability performance. But that doesn't work because the principle, the values, the capabilities, the competencies are so different, which I'll be showing you in the next slide. So what is the reality? The reality is every bit of HRM activity should have sustainability characteristics. So it needs to have sustainability characteristics in every HR function. So you need to now there are people who will say, okay, we'll have recruitment and selection. We will just add sustainability in front of it. So then it becomes sustainable HR. Is that true? No. You need to talk about the sustainability characteristics in recruitment and selection. If you don't build that, then it is not going to work at all. So it's not about tweaking strategic HRM to achieve sustainability performance. That's why sustainable HRM has become a field by itself, so that you have the breadth to try and understand HR practices for sustainability. So these are some of the myths, what you see, and the reality, what I thought I should share.